Channel F, the one with all the fun. The Fairchild Video Entertainment System at your larger JCPenney. The home entertainment system that never gets old. Plug in a new video cart and change the fun. Play tic-tac-toe, shooting gallery, or just doodle. Switch video carts and play Desert Fox. Switch again, it's blackjack. Or play the two built-in games, Pro Hockey or Tennis Champ. Channel F for fun. The Fairchild Video Entertainment System. Just $169.95. Video cart cartridges, $19.95 each. At your larger JCPenney.
The story of the Channel F starts in the mid-1960s. An engineer named Norman Alpert was working at AMF, the maker of bowling alley equipment, in their R&D division. In fact, he was one of the ones responsible for creating the automated scoring that you have in bowling alleys nowadays. Alpert worked at AMF throughout the 1960s. In 1969, AMF moved its R&D division from Connecticut to North Carolina, and a few engineers didn't want to make the move, and Alpert was one of them. He then created his own company named Alpex Computer Corporation. When Alpex first started, their business plan originated around cash registers and had a partnership with Pitney Bowes. But because of the competition with IBM and NCR, their partnership ended in 1973. At this point, Alpex had no products and had to lay off most of its workforce except for 3 engineers, all of them being former AMF employees. Alpex knew it had to do something to stay alive. They wanted to get into the emerging video game market and saw this as being a potentially profitable market as well. With the success of the Atari Pong arcade machine and the Magnavox Odyssey home console, the time just seemed right. It was also around this time that Intel had started to produce their CPUs. First the 4004, then the 8008, and lastly the 8080 in 1974. Of the remaining engineers at Alpex, Wallace Kirshner saw the new CPU as an opportunity to run complex software on a microcomputer, giving it the capability to produce bitmap graphics. The Magnavox Odyssey used old outdated technology called DTL, or diode to transistor logic, and the Pong arcade used TTL, or transistor to transistor logic. These types of discrete logic were able to generate gameplay on the screen, but with very rudimentary graphics. Kirshner met with Albert and was given the go-ahead to start developing a video game system. Kirshner knew the system had to have good games, so they hired a software engineer named Lawrence Haskell, another former AMF employee. Kirshner would be in charge of the hardware and Haskell of the software. The two started on a project codenamed R.A.V.EN, short for Remote Access Video Entertainment. The first iteration of the prototype would use the Intel 8008, but by its release in 1974, they switched over to the new Intel 8080 CPU. By using a CPU, they could now run software on it and be able to have different games that the user could switch out, but they had to come up with a way that this could be done. They looked into all different media types that they had at the time: paper tape, magnetic tape, or magnetic discs. All of these types of media were impractical due to their complexity and cost. But there was a new way to run software on a computer: programmable EEPROMs, which were actually part of Intel's 8080 dev kit. Once programmed, they were to be soldered or socketed onto the board to run the software, but that still wouldn't be practical for the consumer. Haskell and Kirshner took a trip to Radio Shack. They picked up a few small project boxes, perf board, and a few edge connectors. With these parts in hand, they created the first prototype video game cartridge by soldering the EEPROM onto the perf board, putting the project box around it, and then inserting it into the edge connector on the main board. The video game cartridge was born. With R.A.V.EN's hardware almost complete, Haskell was finishing up a few games that he was designing. Tennis, which was pretty much a Pong clone. Hockey, which was like Pong, but you could move your player around the screen and control the angle of the player, move the goalie, and it had an on-screen score and time. These eventually became the built-in games on the Channel F. 3 more games were created at this time: Tic-Tac-Toe, Shooting Gallery, and Doodle. They made it onto the first cartridge for the Channel F. With the design phase being complete, Haskell and Kirshner demoed the R.A.V.EN to Alpert and the Alpex board of directors. They liked the product, but did not have the capital to manufacture or market the game system. They needed to find a business partner. Just as Ralph Baer did with his brown box, they demoed the system to several TV companies such as Sylvania, Zenith, RCA, and Motorola. But none of these companies were interested in their toy. By 1975, Alpex knew they had to get the product out before the competition did. Atari had just released their Pong home console. It integrated the TTL logic into one chip. Atari was getting closer to what Alpex was doing now. Alpex then started showing the R.A.V.EN prototype to semiconductor companies. A company named Fairchild, which was a camera company but also produced semiconductors, had supplied Alpex back in the day when they were making cash registers with their components. This relationship paid off. Alpex showed the R.A.V.EN prototype to Fairchild's Sean Fogarty. He liked the product so much, it went straight to the CEO, Wilf Corrigan. He saw this product as the next step into their integrated circuit division. Fairchild then sent engineer Jerry Lawson out to see the R.A.V.EN. He gave it the final approval and Fairchild bought the system. Since Fairchild wanted to use their own silicone, Lawson worked with Haskell and Kirshner and converted the system from the Intel 8080 CPU to Fairchild's own F8 CPU. At this point, Fairchild took over the project and assigned Lawson as project lead. They had to design a case, a cartridge slot mechanism, cartridge, and controllers for the system. At this point, the code name was changed from R.A.V.EN to Stratos. Lawson hired industrial designer Nicholas Telford to design the console case, controllers, and cartridge design, which got its design inspiration from the 8-track tape. Telford then hired on Ron Smith, a mechanical engineer, to complete the design for the cartridge mechanism. Then they hired graphic artist Tom Kamafuji to draw the cartridge artwork. With everything complete, the system was debuted at the July 1976 CES show. However, only an empty shell was displayed and did not get too much attention from the crowd. They changed the name of the system again from the Stratos to the Video Entertainment System, or VES. A couple months later, the system was featured in a July 1976 article in Business Week called The Smart Machine Revolution. It showed the Channel F alongside of cars, watches, and other electronics that used a microprocessor. This got the attention of the consumer, and interest peaked. A video game system that played more than just the built-in games, with a microprocessor powering it, the first of its kind. Just before its launch, the name of the system was changed again to the Channel F, short for Channel Fun. It launched in November of 1976 in North America and October of '77 in Japan. 350,000 units were made. It had 3 cartridges at launch time. Video Cart 1, which had tic-tac-toe, shooting gallery, doodle, and quadradoodle. Video Cart 2 with Desert Fox and shooting gallery. And Video Cart 3 with video blackjack. Initial sales of the system were okay for the time. Not strong, but solid. Then the Atari VCS was launched in September of 1977. With Atari's fast-paced, action-packed, and licensed arcade ports, the Channel F sales dwindled down. Fairchild needed a way to cut production costs and make improvements to the system to stay competitive. Lawson and Telford started work on an updated Channel F2. The upgraded design would be smaller, integrated most of the remaining logic on the motherboard, have a redesigned case, detachable controllers, and have audio coming through the RF signal instead of the internal speaker. By 1979, sales of the system plummeted. With the added competition of the Odyssey 2, the Intellivision, and the Astrocade, Fairchild started to look for a buyer for the Channel F. A company named Zarkon International made a deal with Fairchild and bought the rights to the Channel F. Zarkon released the upgraded system as the Channel F2 after the acquisition. Not long after this, Jerry Lawson left the company and formed his own game company named Videosoft, which made games for the Amiga, CBS, Mattel, Milton Bradley, and Parker Brothers. By late 1979 and early 1980, Zarkon wanted to expand to Europe. To do this, they licensed the Channel F2 to several companies in different countries in Europe, creating the Channel 2F clone systems, such as the Lexor Video Entertainment System in Sweden, R.A.V.EN Grandstand Video Entertainment Computer in the UK, the Saba Video Play, and the Normandy Color Teleplay from Germany. The system really didn't catch on in Europe either due to Atari's dominance. By 1982, the technology used in the system was dated. With added competition from higher-powered systems such as ColecoVision and the Atari 5200, the Channel F was really showing its age, and sales showed this. In 1983, Zarkon discontinued the Channel F2. In total, there were 26 cartridges made for the system from 1976 to 1981, with no games being made in 1982 or 83. All of the games were developed in-house with no third-party developers. The Channel F had a 7-year lifespan from 1976 to 1983. It sold its initial 350,000 units made by Fairchild, but sales figures are scarce for Zircon and other licensed manufacturing companies in Europe, so we'll say for argument's sake it sold over 350,000 units, and was the first video game system to use programmable ROM cartridges.
Game over, man. It's game over.